Hello, my name is Dave Sheegog, and welcome to my world. We started this when our kids were little, and actually it wasn't a Disney, it wasn't related to Disney at all. It was going to be just a garden railroad that I thought would spark the kids' imagination and interest in learning, because we were homeschooling them here. And so I was going to give each one an area, like a koi pond would be one kid's thing. Maybe if we were doing hybrid plants, that'd be another kid's job to take care of. If there were any trains, maybe somebody does the computer programming. And so it wasn't Disney themed at all. It was just going to be a project for the kids. So that's when we started it. But then it soon became pretty evident that it was going to be Dad's project and they would enjoy it. But a lot of the work here is more heavy work, like weeding and carrying bricks. And I've got a great picture in the house of when we were laying one of the brick sidewalks, because the company we bought them from delivered the pallets of bricks on the sidewalk. So we had to carry them all back here. And so I told each kid, I said, just pick up 2 or 3 bricks. But then, 100 trips later, they're all pooped out and they realized this is a lot of work. So they've enjoyed it over the years. And a lot of times, if they're in town, they'll help out with open houses and such. Well, that all depends if it's a Saturday or Sunday, because typically on Saturday, it starts about 6 o'clock. We come out, we start setting up all the figures that you see, get the trains out, and then sometime around 11, Justin King will come. He's our engineer, and he gets the batteries all set into the trains and takes them all around to make sure no leaves have fallen on the track, or sometimes little varmints come out and start building a nest in the middle of the night. And so we need to clear all those things out. And then we make a run over to the local Subway to get sandwiches, and all the volunteers for the day, actually like right now, I just saw they put down the shade here. We get lunch for everybody, and they usually start that around 12:30 to get all ready for the opening at 1. Sundays are a little different in that all the figures are already out, so pretty much we just have to get lunch for everybody. We run the trains around a couple times, which we've already done today, and everything's looking good. And so in a few minutes, all of our visitors will start showing up, and hopefully everything will be smooth running. I know that colors are very important for things to look right. If somebody just says red, there's a million reds. And if you want it to look authentic to an original, no matter what it is, if it's Disney or whatever, getting that exact shade is a critical thing. So Disney doesn't divulge what any of their paints are. So how we got them so close here is I made many trips to Disneyland with fan decks of paint colors from commercial paint makers. And I would hold them next to, say it's a locomotive like the CK Holiday. I'd hold like 12 different blues all in one shot and take a picture of it. And then bring it back home and I could see, oh, number 6 is the closest, but it's got a little too much purple in it. So then the next week I would come back and have shades that are closer in that range and would hone that in until we got a color that matched about as close as you're ever gonna match them. And some of the ones that I could never match quite with a standard paint chip, I would take it to a custom paint maker. He does automotive paints, and I'd show him the photograph of my sample, like an orange next to, say, a Casey Jr.'s orange. And he could tell, oh, he's got a little more yellow in his, so he would mix up my custom color, a little more yellow, and then I would get it dialed in a little closer, and then he can put those paints in a spray can, and we'd come back and then spray up our things, and so there are hundreds of cans of custom colors in my garage right now that he helped me develop that most closely matched. But it was never from Disney. Yeah, that's a guarded secret as to what their exact paint match is. So we just came as close empirically as we could. When I entered this hobby, I didn't do it as an architect, I did it as a hobbyist because, you can't build these buildings the way you would build full-size buildings because they're too small. So I intentionally, the first 5 buildings, picked a completely different construction technique for each one. One of them was built with plywood covered in urethane to be waterproof, and then we applied castings to it, and that was the original Sleeping Beauty castle. Whereas like this one behind me was all glued redwood struts together. The Temple of the Forbidden Eye back here was all solid cast resin. We carved it in a foam, made a silicone mold of it, and then poured it in a two-part casting resin, so it was solid resin. The original Main Street station was all laser cut acrylic pieces that were then glued together. And so then I would test them and find out which ones weathered the best. And of those 5 original techniques, it turns out I don't use any of them now. Now I use primarily laser cut precision board. It's a closed cell polyurethane board that basically resists almost everything. Insects don't eat it, it doesn't warp, it takes paint great. The only thing that will degrade it is UV light, but as long as you paint it well, it withstands that. So things like Beast Castle up here, it's been up there, gosh, 8 years now, I think. It looks pretty much the same as the day it went up. And so I've honed in on my technique that withstands the weather the best. Oh, actually, the one I didn't forget of the original buildings was Snow White's cottage, or the dwarf's cottage from Snow White. And it has a thatched roof, but I found I can't really duplicate that in a way that I like. So about every 3 or 4 years, we bring it in, give it a new thatched roof, and put it back out, because we like the look of a natural thatch. This is interesting. How did you decide what piece of Disney are we showcasing? Originally, I just wanted major landmarks like Sleeping Beauty Castle, Main Street Station, that sort of thing. But then as things evolved, like a movie, like when Tangled came out, I didn't have any place for it, but I go, I've got to build that Tangled Tower. And so we redid the rock work to make a place for it. Sometimes things would happen that way. Other times it would just be, I've got a corner that's underutilized, and I want to do something with it, so I'll maybe try and think of what piece of Disney could fit in here. Like actually right now we're going to be adding a handcar that goes back and forth in front of Main Street Station, but I've got to have somewhere for him to end. So we came up with the idea of building Walt's Barn, which a lot of people won't know because it's not at Disneyland, it's up at Griffith Park, but it was at Walt Disney's original house that, where he controlled the trains that were around his house. So we'll build a little replica of Walt's Barn, and that's where our handcar will duck into. And so, so sometimes it's just looking at a corner of saying, what would be fun to put here? There is no mathematical rule of thumb. Everything is stick your thumb out and kind of figure, does it feel right or not. But actually, if you want to turn the camera over, the place where we have the most, we'll call it forced perspective here, is Beast Castle, which if you were to build it at the same scale as the other things that are up in the foreground, it'd probably be 3 times this size. So if we had little figures in them, rather than being 3-inch figures, they'd be about 1-inch figures, actually fit into that. But because we put it off in a distance and put a full-scale village in front of it, you know, it gives the illusion that it is a full-size castle off in the distance. Likewise, actually, Rapunzel's tower, if the figures in the front would never fit in the tower, but we put it off in the distance. So in that way, we're sort of utilizing a bit of forced perspective. Not the same as Disney does, but in our own little way here. Actually, the most challenging project was the one that is actually not quite finished. It's Pixie Hollow, and it's behind us. And we had already kind of mastered how to build buildings and how to do rocks and things. So this one was our first, actually it's the second foray into a actually animated show. It's all computer driven show that has animations, has fountains, it has lights, it has a music soundtrack that we actually had a composer put together with us, and had animators do the animation, and then all the sequencing of the lights that are all put to the music. It's an entire show, and but it's a nighttime show, so we don't usually, well, we won't be showing off the lights that are, it's an underwater light show, and they all follow little patterns like the fairies are flying around underwater, then they fly up into the cave, and you'll see them in the caves. But anyway, that was the most challenging, and that was the first one where I brought a lot of consultants, I'll call them, on board. I found 3 young women that had just graduated from Chapman College that were animators, and they did my animation. The maestro that put together our soundtrack, he's a friend, actually does a lot of railroad work, and he's a friend of my daughter's, and he put together the soundtrack. All of the computer programming was done by a man that's what he does for a living, does it for restaurants and things. Like if you wanted to have your restaurant look like Rainforest, yeah, he would be the guy that they would hire to say, we want animals that are automated, and we want a lightning show and flashes of lightning, and he would put all that together. So I got together with him to sequence the lights, and I think there were actually 13 different consultants on board for that one. So you asked what was the hardest. That one's by far been the most complicated, and it's not quite finished yet, but it actually was primary reason we built that is we've got 2 major attractions that are still in the works right now, and they're going to utilize everything we learned from that because it's on a smaller scale. The next project will be a larger scale, and we want to make sure we've worked out the bugs of how to do that. So when we put together those larger shows, we have a little history. You know, I don't think I can say there's a most satisfying scene per se. The most satisfying thing to me about the railroad is when we do the open houses and you bring all these strangers in, and you can look around and they're laughing and enjoying themselves, and families have got their little kids, and little kids are pointing and saying, "Mommy, Mommy, come here," and they're all enjoying themselves and having fun. To me, that's the most satisfying part of it, and it could be on almost any one of the scenes we've done. And so I try to make each one of the scenes satisfying in its own way. You know, I don't let it go until I'm happy with the way it looks. So that, to me, they're all satisfying. But seeing people interact and more enjoying themselves as a family or as friends, a lot of times the groups of friends come, and that's the most satisfying thing to me. Those that want to find the hidden Mickeys, they are relentless, and they will stay until they found them all. And if we're coming close to closing time, we might help them a little bit to find them. Yeah, the people that search for the hidden Mickeys, they are usually diehard fans that have a mission, and they're not going to quit till they find them all. So, and they are findable. What did it cost? I don't know. It's been almost 30 years that we've been tinkering on it. Probably less than putting in a swimming pool and all the rock work around it. You know, probably in that kind of range. Because if I were to include my own labor, like if somebody were to hire a company to do it, it's probably 5 times that amount, because, or 10 times maybe, because most of the, I'll say the cost of doing it is in your own personal labor and your time. And actually most of the time on everything we build now is spent in front of a computer doing a 3D model that will either be part of the laser cutting, the 3D printing, the visualization. So probably 9/10 of the time of any project is spent sitting in front of a computer. And then the materials, you know, are not, most of them are the projects, they're not very expensive. It's the time and the, you know, the energy that goes into creating that is where most of the time is spent. Yeah, so maybe like if you were to put in a swimming pool, it's probably similar to that kind of cost. A lot of people think when they see something, the latest thing that's going into Disney, they'll tell me, are you going to add this, you know, which is the latest thing? And for the most part, I'm more into the retro stuff now. I mean, the reason we put Nature's Wonderland in is we get a lot of retirement groups here and alumni groups. And like, for instance, the Nature's Wonderland was taken out many years ago, but the groups that actually worked on that, they might come here to visit. And when they can see a little part that they remember, it means more to them than trying to make whatever's the latest thing. And so, because actually the 2 new things that we're planning, one of them is going to be Rainbow Caverns, which unless you've got white hair like me, you probably don't remember driving through Rainbow Caverns. I remember it really well. And so it's going to be a beautiful thing. It'll be an indoor exhibit with the trains coming through the mist in the dark with fluorescent lights, and There's actually be a Tinkerbell as we flying through as a little hologram, lighting up each of the rainbow or the colorful fountains and things. That'll be an indoor exhibit, but then to keep up with what's recent, we're going to be building a Galaxy's Edge, which is going to be quite exciting. It'll be an attraction similar to a Disney attraction in that it take a group in, a door will close, it'll be a predetermined show. When it finishes, that group will go out and another group will come in. And so that's all on the boards right now, and hopefully by maybe late 2027 that'll be completed. Yeah, there's a lot of new technological things that we like to incorporate, but in the two new shows that I just mentioned, Rainbow Caverns and Galaxy's Edge, we have, I'm going to call them holographic images. They're actually produced on a device called a holofan. They're not necessarily holographic, but they appear to float in the air. And so we're going to be using that technology to get Tinkerbell to fly through the air, and also our Star Tours hostess is going to appear to our guests to take them on a tour of Galaxy's Edge, and she will be a hologram also. And the technology to tie those things together, though, to me it's more challenging, and where I need to get a lot of help actually, so that I can have a fan turn on to blow people's hair if we have bats flying over their head in the caves, and then a fountain turn on, and then Tinkerbell fly by, and then laser lights come in to put everyone into quarantine while they're in Galaxy's Edge. The system to tie all those systems together, that's a technological thing that we've explored with Pixie Hollow and will expand upon with the new attractions. My wife and I view this as something that we can give back to the community and just have fun with. And I haven't retired yet, but in the process of trying. And when I become an official old retired person, this will be kind of what we do, and come up with additional things to add to it just to have fun, A lot of people associate Disney just with the name Disney and don't realize it was all pioneered by Walt Disney. He was a man that had just great dreams and has lived just an amazing life. And if some of you have never read about Walt Disney's life, do yourself a favor and learn about him, because he was a guy that believed you could accomplish anything you set your mind to. And he loved, actually there's a great quote when he brought his Imagineers together, and it was actually for Rainbow Caverns, and they told him, what you want to do can't be done. And he just looked at him and says, well, it's a good thing we do the impossible here, isn't it? And left the room knowing that his mind hasn't changed. There's a way, you just need to figure it out. And that mindset is something that I think some people lose today. They come here and they'll ask, how did you ever, and then with whatever their question is, said it's something I wanted to do. So if I didn't know how to build rocks, I would learn how to build rocks. If I didn't know how to do animation, I'll find people that can do animation. And it's just been an enjoyable process as we go through it. And that would be my closing thoughts. That people, I think, when they come here, some of them leave and they're inspired and they want to do something themselves. It may not be build a railroad, but it's whatever their dream is, and they might be inspired a little bit to say, I can grab the bull by the horns and do what I want to do,